So let's do this. Let's take a moment to talk to our correspondent in Izraa, that is about 95 kilometers south of the capital of Damascus in Syria. And if you would, take a moment and describe what you're seeing in Izraa. We know that there are funerals taking place there today, and we know that funerals can provide a flashpoint for more violence.
Yeah, I was traveling north to south on the main Damascus highway that runs from Damascus to Amman, and about 20 kilometers before the border there's an overpass that connects Izraa to the town of Dada. On that overpass, people were marching, and we were sort of warned off on the highway, people stopping, pulling us over to the side of the road. And about 50 meters in front of me, you could see the overpass, people marching, and they were met with a hail of gunfire. Many people certainly wounded directly in front of us, cars being turned around, and I can tell you it was an incredibly chaotic scene, and it seems as though pretty much everyone down here in the southern part of the country is now carrying weapons. Unclear who was firing at who. That's part of the confusion that we've seen in the past few weeks, but clearly a very violent incident now being carried out here in the south of the country.
So it's interesting to try to figure this out because, as you mentioned just a moment ago, it gets to be pretty confusing. Any way to know at this point, from what you were able to witness yourself or from reports you're getting from folks on the scene, as to whether or not this was a confrontation where members of the group were firing on security forces, vice versa? What's the extent of the clarity on this?
Well, it seemed pretty clear to me that this was a funeral procession crossing over the overpass, and they were met with gunfire, as I said. It was unclear which direction the gunfire was coming from. I did not see anyone returning fire. I only saw sort of fire in one direction. But as I said, the road has been completely cut off, and there's now a very heavy army presence along the highway. Pretty much all of the side roads that lead into the towns to the east and to the west of that main highway that runs from Damascus to Amman have been cut completely off by the army, Tony.
How can this be explained? How can this kind of aggression by security forces be acceptable as a way of dealing with protests, particularly at a moment of a funeral?
Well, I think it's pretty clear now that the government feels that the eyes of the world are elsewhere, and that this is the best way to deal with what they're calling an armed insurrection, to just violently put it down. We saw this yesterday, and clearly we're seeing this again today. The government was clearly anticipating funerals like this, and anticipating that violence could break out at these funerals. People are obviously very angry, clearly because they've had family members who have been killed, and I think the government was anticipating violence. But what I witnessed was a clear, brutal use of force on behalf of the security forces who, as I said, fired on individuals who were crossing over this overpass. And one of the things that we've been seeing for weeks, and I saw just now with my own eyes, is that medical personnel could not get to this overpass because of the situation. And I'm sorry, Tony, I'm going to have to drop off the phone. There's an army checkpoint. We're being pulled over. I apologize.
All right, be safe. Our correspondent in Izraa, about 95 kilometers south of the capital, Damascus.